Man here. Y'all know how I get down. We talking boxing, man. So I'm listening to Gennady Golovkin. Triple G is what they call him. And we know he's now signed this new deal with DAZN, and this got a lot of the fans excited because we know all the potential fights that can go down. Potential fights with, Demetrius Andrade, potential fights with, Canelo Alvarez, Daniel Jacobs. It all plays out very well for Gennady Golovkin. The only thing is, we need Gennady Golovkin to also play along. It seems as if that a lot of the fans of Gennady Golovkin says he's a great fighter. First ballot Hall of Fame with 20 title defenses, right? Silver medalist. The only thing I have to say to that is that great fighters supposed to do great things. You know what I'm saying? That's what makes them great. And I recall earlier in Gennady Golovkin's career where he had the opportunity to do something great. And that was to go up in weight and possibly challenge the great Andre Ward, who was ready and willing to give Gennady Golovkin the opportunity. Well, it was Gennady Golovkin who basically declined that opportunity and didn't take that chance to do something great. And here we are today, and we're wondering, well, a lot of the detractors of Gennady Golovkin are wondering, well, is he ever going to do something that we consider great? Because instead of facing Andre Ward back then, he went back down to face the Daniel Gills, the Curtis Stevens, that caliber, the David Lemieux of the world. And that's when middleweight wasn't really all that popping, all like that. Well, now today, the middleweight division is on fire. Gennady Golovkin signing a fresh deal. So we should see him in the mix of all of these dudes. The reason I'm talking about this is because I'm listening to Gennady Golovkin talk in Russian all of a sudden at the press conference. And when they asks him about Demetrius Andrade, a great fight that all of us fans would love to see, a world title fight because Demetrius Andrade holds the WBO championship, it seems as if Gennady Golovkin can't give you a straight answer. He gives you some jazz like, oh, well, all fighters are dangerous type talk. And a lot of us just don't know what that means. It's not a yes and it's not a no. And so we just like, yo, this is a good opportunity to do something great. Because if Gennady Golovkin can go along and beat Demetrius Andrade, and let's just say Canelo Alvarez can get through Daniel Jacobs, well, the trilogy that he wants so bad with Canelo Alvarez can be for the undisputed middleweight championship. That's huge. That's big. And so that opportunity is right there in his face, and all he has to do is just open his mouth and say the word. But however, the word on the street is that Gennady Golovkin may be fighting a guy by the name of Kamil Ceramida. This dude is 19-0 with 4 knockouts. I repeat, 4 knockouts. 1, 2, 3, 4 knockouts. That's it in 19 fights. And everybody's like, well, Gennady Golovkin deserves a soft touch. He's been out of the ring. He's been inactive. What? They're talking about Gennady Golovkin going to come back and fight in June. The last time Gennady Golovkin fought was in September when he lost to Canelo Alvarez. Which means by the time he come back into the ring, it would be about 9 months upon his return. Well, last I recall, right before he fought Canelo Alvarez was out of the ring for a year and coming off of a draw. It wasn't a loss, but it was a tough bruising fight. And he was out of the ring for a year, and he took Gennady Golovkin on his first fight back. No warm-up, no soft touch. Let's get it on. That's what great fighters do. But Gennady Golovkin, he's out of the ring 9 months. Yet, when I recall, when he originally was talking about going back to ESPN, he wanted to take on Ryota Murata. I can never pronounce his name right. But he wanted to take on Murata. But however, Rob Brandt spoiled those plans. So if he was down to take on Murata, and they were fighting for the WBA regular championship, what's the problem with taking on Demetrius Andrade or a Jamal Charlo? The thing is, if Gennady Golovkin goes through with his plans of fighting this Zaramita dude, it can possibly see Canelo Alvarez possibly either get stripped or vacate one of his titles if they're planning on fighting in the fall. Remember the situation. Jamal Charlo was named the mandatory to Canelo Alvarez. However, in October, the WBC granted Canelo Alvarez a voluntary defense. And so they said that Jamal Charlo will be ordered to face Gennady Golovkin for the mandatory position, with the mandatory position on the line, which Jamal Charlo was already the mandatory. Gennady Golovkin then had to search for a new network home, given HBO went out, right? We thought it was going to be at ESPN, and he went over to talk with PBC, but he landed at DAZN. 6-fight deal, $40+ million, plus back-end money and equity in the company or whatever the hell. And so now this begs the question, because Gennady Golovkin is rated first in the WBC as of today, with Jamal Charlo being the WBC interim champion, as well as the mandatory. So if he chooses not to face that fight, over in the WBO, Gennady Golovkin entered it rated number 2, with Billy Joe Saunders being number 1. But however, Billy Joe Saunders chose to go up in weight and fight for the WBO 168 title, attempting to go and try to fight for that title. So this elevates Gennady Golovkin to number 1. Now, in that particular case, the WBO, they have not named Gennady Golovkin the mandatory challenger to Demetrius Andrade. And the WBO can help everybody out by naming Gennady Golovkin the mandatory. But sometimes they don't do that. Sometimes the WBO will come along and say, no, we have to put you in the final eliminator and then give you the mandatory spot. We've seen this happen before. Look at Dillian White. Dillian White beats Joseph Parker. He's number 1 in the WBO today. But however, he is not rated as the mandatory. At the WBO's discretion, they can name him the mandatory, or they can give him a final eliminator, whichever one. But this Camille Zaramita guy is rated number 2 in the WBC behind Gennady Golovkin. And he's rated also number 2 in the WBA behind Gennady Golovkin, with Canelo being the champion in both sanctioning bodies. So if Gennady Golovkin goes on to face this Camille Zaramita guy and then hopes to meet Canelo Alvarez in the fall, well, guess what? Gennady Golovkin won't have a belt. And I can't see any reason whatsoever why the WBC will then not once again order their mandatory challenger in Jamal Charlo to then face Canelo Alvarez, given that Gennady Golovkin backed out of that situation. Now, the WBC can be some protective assholes and say, you know what? We're going to have Jamal Charlo face another eliminator for the mandatory spot, when it won't really look right at that point. Because you're basically telling me to put my mandatory position on the line after I've already waited for a long time for my shot. And then you're telling me now I have to defend my mandatory spot when Canelo Alvarez is going to face a non-champion? The first time they granted Canelo Alvarez that exception because it was a voluntary. The second time, which is against Daniel Jacobs, is a unification fight. And we know unifications trump mandatories. But against Gennady Golovkin, he won't neither be a champion, nor will it be a time for a voluntary defense. So how can the WBC then explain themselves as for Canelo Alvarez remaining champion and not enforcing the mandatory? The only way that they can do that is if Jamal Charlo willfully accepts step-aside money and accepts some sort of deal where he'll allow Canelo Alvarez to go defend that title. But why would he do that when he's been waiting for so long for his shot? And if Jamal Charlo chooses not to do that, then guess what? I believe the WBC should have to enforce that mandatory, or else Canelo will have to either vacate or be stripped, risking the fact of us getting a undisputed middleweight champion in a fight between him and Gennady Golovkin. You see what I'm saying? Now, I hope the WBC don't come out and do something stupid. Like, oh, well, Jamal Charlo, you have to face another eliminated or defend your mandatory position. After he has been waiting so long, it was already foul enough that they ordered him to face Gennady Golovkin, the loser of the fight between him and Canelo. That was already foul enough. So if Gennady Golovkin want to do something great, all he got to do is come back and face Demetrius Andrade. He can say it loud and from the rooftops, I want Andrade next. The same way you wanted to face Murata when you thought that that opportunity would present itself. It would have been a big fight, right? Over on ESPN. Not to mention it would have made you the WBO regular champion, putting you right up under Canelo. But you can say, nah, screw all that. I want Demetrius Andrade for the WBO title. Beat Demetrius Andrade, who's open for that fight, called you out. After the Billy Joe Saunders negotiations or the second time around it fell apart, he wanted you. You can go after that WBO title. And then in this case, Canelo Alvarez would then be going for another unification match for the WBO as well as undisputed if he beats Daniel Jacobs. That way, the Jamal Charlo situation, that's nothing that can happen. And though I want to see Charlo get his shot, I do. At the end of the day, Gennady Golovkin versus Canelo Alvarez for the undisputed middleweight title, I'll be down to pause the Jamal Charlo fight for that situation. You know what I mean? So what is Triple G going to do? Does Triple G stand for triple great or triple gump? I'm trying to figure this out. See, a lot of boxing fans ain't but 2 seconds off Gennady Golovkin anyway when he decided to go face Vanes Monterosa instead of defending his IBF title against Sergey Deryevchenko. Because we were told to that point that Gennady Golovkin was about collecting all the belts. That's what we was told. This is the reason he didn't want to fight Ward, amongst other things. But he wanted to get the belt. And he just willfully let one of his belts go to not face Sergey Deryevchenko and to take an easy touch in Vanes Monterosa, a fight that absolutely nobody asked for or checking for. Billy Joe Saunders even wanted smoke. He didn't even want that smoke. He could have went after the WBO title. He could have went after that title then and wanted no smoke. You see what I'm saying? Great fighters do great things, man. They don't just talk. They don't let their fans just talk for them. You got to put that work in to do something great. So here's your opportunity. Here's the opportunity. This is crazy to me, man. And I don't like how this is working itself out. How is the zone standing behind this? I don't know. Maybe they just want that Canelo fight by any means. They want the bag of money that comes with that. Well, guess what? There's going to be a lot of criticism over that. How he ducked Jamal Charlo and ducked Demetrius Andrade. And if the WBC does not strip Canelo Alvarez, there's going to be some criticism coming their way as well, because they're already under the gun for being Canelo's biggest protector. You dig? Yeah, the Action Jackson of boxing when it comes to Canelo Alvarez. They keep protecting this dude. They like Schwarzenegger and John Connor, man. It's getting crazy. So I'm just like, look, man, Gennady Golovkin is letting a terrible situation slip through right here, man. And this ain't a good look. It's not a good look at all. That was one of our biggest hopes by him going over to the zone. Now, I will say this. Let's just say if we want to be man, you got to be fair. He's 37 years of age. He's older. He's been out of the ring, blah, 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 blah. If you want to be that person, right, then how about this? Why doesn't he go and face Stephen Butler? He's a credible opponent from Canada. I like Stephen Butler. that would then make that for a final eliminator in the WBO and then go on and take on Demetrius Andrade. Wouldn't the Canelo and Gennady Golovkin fight be like 3 times much bigger for undisputed middleweight champion? For to have an undisputed middleweight champion? This ain't rocket science, man. This should happen. You did. And if Daniel Jacobs defeats Canelo Alvarez for his belts, he should be taking on Jacobs. Not talking about some crap like, oh, well, even if Canelo loses, I'll still face Canelo. Man, you just after the money, huh? You just after the money. And as fans like myself, who already are looking at you with the side eye, like, when it was Curtis Stevens, it was no problem. When it was Miguel Cotto, he was ready to do whatever it takes. When it was Floyd, it was all good. But now you don't want to get in there with these hungry young lions out here, real champions. Now it's a problem. What's up, Gennady? What's going on? Oh, man, there's too much at stake. He can lose the Canelo fight. Great fighters do great things, man. Great fighters do great things. He lost in his last opportunity against Canelo. He lost. Whether you believe he won, he won that fight. Man, what you talking about? You don't know nothing about boxing. He won that fight. If you that cat, whatever, cuz I got news for you. He lost. He lost. All right? On paper, he lost. So guess what? Given that he had 2 shots and he didn't win neither one, whether what you believe or whatever, he didn't win neither one. Well, guess what, man? You got to put some work in. You got to put some work in. So I don't like this situation. I'm not feeling this Camille Zeramita fight or whatever they talking about. Never heard of this cat like that. I see he's rated high amongst the sanctioning bodies. Number 2 in the WBC. Number 2 in the WBA. Let's see. In the WBO, he's even in there, I think. He's in there somewhere, ain't he? I don't know, man. I know he's not in the WBO, but he is in the IBF. Number 4 in the IBF. Man, come on, man. A dude with 4 knockouts, for real. Somebody that Golovkin could just walk through in June and then turn around and say, oh, I want Canelo. Then he real salty over the fight, being super salty about a fight that he lost. Now, I get it, though. I don't want to look, I'm going to say this. I can understand Gennady Golovkin's hunger to want to get back to Canelo. This is the man that took everything from him. This is the man that took his belts, his dignity, his title. On top of that, got found guilty for taking, PEDs and all this good stuff. Eating Mexican meat and all that. I get it. And you feeling some kind of way. I get it, man. But you ain't win, bruh. If you felt like that, you should have canceled the fight and came back at a later time. When you thought that the Mexican meat or whatever was all out of the system. Clenbuterol, whatever. If you thought it was all that, you shouldn't have accepted the fight. A lot of fans at that time was telling Gennady Golovkin to back the hell out of the fight. But he didn't. So he got to live with the consequences. So you got to put that work in, man. Demetrius Andrade is calling your name. You're supposed to be a great. You got to move like it. You got to walk like it. You missed the opportunity with Andre Ward. You gave your title up to Sergey Deryevchenko. You didn't want to step in there with Billy Joe Saunders. And now here we are at a situation where you don't want to face Demetrius Andrade, nor Jamal Charlo. And you round telling everybody, even if Canelo lost, Abel was saying that they'll still try to fight Canelo, even if he loses to Jacobs. Like, what the hell, bruh? Even though Jacobs, you beat Jacobs, it was real close, and I had Jacobs winning. Man, this don't make no sense. It don't make sense at all, man. And I ain't going for it. It's some bullshit. We'll see how Gennady Golovkin turns because this Camille Zeramita fight ain't official. Not quite yet. But the way things are talking and the word on the curb, it just might be. So I ask the question once again. Is this dude triple great or triple gump? Time will tell. To the next video. Main Man, Made Man. Don't forget to subscribe to Twitter. Made Man 511. Facebook. Main Man, Made Man. Boxing Forum. Google Plus. Main Man, Made Man. I'm not. Nah, man. You can't just. You just can't walk back into the title shot, bruh. On top of that, Gennady Golovkin, even if he gets this Zaramita cat, then hopefully, Canelo in the WBC allow the Canelo fight to go forward, or Jamal Charlo takes steps. He still got 4 fights to go. You gonna have to mix it up with these cats eventually, man. You just don't want to do it before the Canelo fight, huh? Is that what it is? Scared that thing gonna fly away if you take that L. Man, great fighters do great things. To the next video. Peace out.